Hi geometry students, and welcome to this chapter 2 review of the test that was given last week. This is an optional video, so if you clicked in and you got 100% on the test and you really don't need to go over anything, feel free to click off the video. Or if you maybe just had some of the proofs that you got wrong, you can kind of scroll through to find where you need to be to go over those. They are at the end just because they're at the end of the test. So I'll try to make this as short and sweet as possible, but did want to go over the test in its entirety so that you can review and perhaps learn from your mistakes. So in the first section, it was just definitions, and I have put the correct answers up there. I think almost everybody got most of these right. Number 1 was C, number 2 was A, number 3 was B, number 4 was D, and number 5 was E, and number 6 was F. So if you got these wrong, there was really no, I wasn't trying to trick you on these. I would suggest you just go back and look over your flashcards. The next section was to name the properties, and we had taken a look at these earlier in chapter 2, and I'm going to scroll through to try to find the page number for you so that you can take a look at some of these. But again, these should have been on your flashcards, so it shouldn't have been a big mystery. You should have had those kind of right in front of you as you worked through the test. So hopefully, if you're confused on these, I do suggest that you go back, take a look at your flashcards, take a look at the sample in the book that has these, and the page number for these was 88 and 90. So 88 and 90 had most of these, I think, on them. So I gave you just mostly angle or segment measure equations, and you were just supposed to put the property. Number 7 was reflexive property. Number 8 was substitution. Most of you thought it was addition, but if you notice, the 4 is substituted in for ST. And so take a look at that on page 90 so that you make sure that you understand it. Number 9 was symmetric. Number 10 was transitive. That's where you've got two equations, but there's a common element in them, and then they can kind of join up. Number 11 was multiplication, and number 12 was subtraction. And this is the one that you needed to be most cognizant of in the proof. So when we get there, I'll try to help you understand that. Filling in the blanks was to put some angle measurements. And you had directions on each equation, and so number 13, it said B is a supplement, angle B is a supplement of angle T. The measure of angle B was 37. And so then you just had to, since it was supplementary, you were subtracting from 180. Now, the thing that most people got wrong was just not putting this piece right here. The measure of angle T, the measure of angle H, and the measure of angle 4. Some of you just decided to put the numbers, and you did get points off for that. Number 14 was 34 degrees, and number 15 was 148 degrees. So as you're going through this, make the notes that I'm mentioning, make the corrections, and then I want you to go back and take a look and see what you did wrong and try to learn. All right, the next page, page 2, showed this diagram. And this diagram, you had just a few little instructions here that you were to find the measures of angle 1, 2, and 3, excuse me. Now, we have a couple of things going on in here. First of all, we have a linear pair, and that's along, here's this line Remember, line equals linear. And a linear pair we know will equal 180 degrees. So I've mentioned that up here in this first section. Therefore, we need to take 180 and subtract 120, which gives us 60. So the angle 1 is 60 degrees. Now, if you were confused past this point, you need to remember vertical angles. So we have this cutting through here. It is not a bisector. We don't know that. We don't need to know that. But it is creating vertical angles, which means that 1 and 3 will be equal, and 2 and, this is probably angle 4, but 2 will be equal to 120. So vertical angles, you needed to be aware of that theorem or those definitions. So therefore the angle 2, vertical to angle, whatever this is going to be 120 degrees. And then we know that 1 and 3 are equal, so we go back up here to angle 1, which is 60, and that's what we assign to angle 3. So hopefully that helps a little bit with that. Next, we had question 12 with another diagram, and I even put 25 degrees upside down and right side up, and depending on how you were looking at the test. Now this was meant to be busy so that it would maybe throw your eyes off a little bit, but it's really important to look at what the information that's given to you and then try to make deductions based on that. Remember, we talked about deductive reasoning. So the measure of angle QRS is 90 degrees, QRS. Now, right here is our little right angle marking. So there should be no question in your mind that QRS is 90 degrees. If I made you justify it, you would tell me that the angle marking was in there. It's given, it's information. It wasn't given in words, but it was given in this symbol right here. Now, some of you wanted to use your protractor and mark these. I will tell you that I did not draw these to scale. So if you decided to use your protractor and use those as the measurement, you were probably too far off for me to give you the points for those. All right, now let's keep going. Now we've got to make deductions based on this information and based on this information of SRT or TRS being 25 degrees. Okay, so now we want to find out the measure of URW. So here is let me find it, URW. This one right here. Now, we can also say that this is 90 degrees because these are vertical angles. QRS and the big angle URW, those are vertical angles. That means they both have to be 90 degrees. Now, the measure of URV, okay, right here, it's where the, probably the bisector, they didn't tell us that though. It is going to be 45 degrees. URV is going to be 45 degrees. Don't try to measure it with a protractor. Now the reason that you can justify that is there are congruent marks right here and right here. That means these two angles are equal. Now since we know that this big angle is 90, the only way that these can be equal is if they're both 45 degrees. To be congruent, they would have to be 45 degrees. So again, you're using that deductive reasoning with the information that you're given. And then the last one we're asked about is WRX. WRX. So this angle right in here. Now we have to use vertical angles again. This is vertical. These two are vertical with each other, which makes it 25 degrees. So there wasn't any, you didn't have to use any tools, you didn't have to use anything to measure, you just needed to use the information that was in the picture. Okay, let's move on to the definitions of acute, right, and obtuse, and I'm going to always be asking review questions, so you should always have all of your definition cards with you for a test. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. A right angle is 90. And an obtuse angle is greater than 90 degrees. I believe everybody got those right. Question 19. We had a line segment. T is the midpoint of segment SU. And they wanted you to find ST and SU. Now this, some of you measured again. You are given the information right here. And so that is all you need. Now since we know that TU is 7, this is the midpoint, that means ST also has to equal 7. And that means the whole thing would be 14. So make sure you understand your midpoint formula. All right, the next one, we have line K bisecting JL. This is JL even though I cut off the L over here. It's bisecting it. They also give us 2t and t plus 8 over here. Now the whole question is, what do I need from this information? Do I need to create an equation? Well, in this case, because nothing else is given, yes, you probably do need to create an equation. There are other situations that we've had though where you didn't need to. So the segments on both sides are equal. Here is the indication of that because this is a bisector. Therefore, we write out an equation, 2t equals t plus 8, and then we solve it. Now, if you remember your algebra, you're going to subtract the t from both sides, and you are left with t equals 8. So they wanted you to find the value of t. They didn't necessarily need for you to find out how long this is and how long this is. So don't use your protractor to measure. All right, question 21. This one stumped quite a few people, and also some people did not add and subtract correctly. So to find the midpoints, when you have 2 points on a graph, some of you did graph it, and some of you who graphed accurately did find the correct midpoints. But because I wanted to kind of shove you to using the way that we learned in the book, some of you did not get that and try to graph. So the first points, you've got a point of 3, 4, and 6, 8, and we can put that on a graph and probably come pretty close. However, we did have a fractional answer, a couple of them, and so that's where it's going to be really hard. So here you add, remember you add the x's, you add the y's, and then you divide them by 2. So 3 plus 6, here's your x's, there's 3, there's 6. You add and you get 9, divided by 2, you get 4.5. See, that might have been hard to tell. Then you add your 4 and your 8, and you get 12, divided by 2, and you have 6. There's how you find the midpoints. The next one was -6 plus -4, and this one caught a lot of you because you didn't add your negatives correctly. -6 plus -4 is -10. And then divided by 2, you ended up with -5. 2 plus -9 is going to be -7. Divided by 2 is -3.5. Some of you left that as -7 over 2. That was fine as well. So make sure that you know how to use to find the midpoint formulas, to find the midpoints when you have lines on a graph. That's really important. Finally, question number 22, we find out that we have a bisector here, which is RS, which is going to make both sides of this equal. It says RS bisects angle TRV. Here we go. Find the measure of TRS and the measure of SRV. Well, this was a little bit of a trick question. You really don't need to know this part here, the 3x minus 9. We've already been given measures. The measure of TRS is 45. We know this is a bisector, So this is 45 too. So both of these are 45 degrees. You really didn't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. You should have just been able to look at it and know that 45 degrees was the answer for both. All right. Then the more complicated pieces we have on page, and this is where things really began to fall apart for folks. So I'm going to try to explain this as we go. So in the diagram, angle 3 right here and angle 2 are supplementary angles. Now we don't know anything about this angle that sits next to angle 3. We don't know a thing. But we do know that this and this are supplementary angles. We had to complete the argument to show that angle 3 equals angle 1. So we begin by writing angle 3, this one, and angle 2 are supplemental, and that's given. You should always put that in. Give me the given information. You would have gotten points if I had some of you didn't do it. Then we can say, we now have to think like, okay, what's the next logical step? The measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. We know that because the definition of supplemental angles. You may use definitions, you may use theorems, you may use postulates. It doesn't matter. If it's something that's been recognized in your book, then you may use it. Now we're going to say that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. Well, why? Because this is a linear pair. Some of you tried to say this, or 3 and 2 were linear pairs. They're not. 3 and the unknown angle are linear pairs. But angle 1 and 2 are linear pairs. Two adjacent angles, linear pair. Now next we can say that the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 2, we know that's 180 degrees from up here, equals the measure of angle 1 and angle 2, right? We just said they were a linear pair. That equals 180 degrees. We could have added a step in here to clarify that, but I didn't. But we do know that they're equal. And how do we know that they're equal? Either the substitution or addition property will let us know that 3 and 2 put together and 1 and 2 put together, both of them equal 180, so they equal each other. Now I think only one person got this. We have this little equation up here, and it's just like sort of like an algebraic equation. Since I have 2 on this side and 2 on this side, if I subtract it out, I get angle 3 equals angle 1. Subtraction policy subtraction property came into play here. And so subtraction property, I did give points for transitive. So if I didn't give you points, then let me know. I'd be happy to adjust those. But this should have been subtraction property because we're subtracting out the 2 from both sides to be left with angle 3 equals angle 1. All right, now let's move on to the one that you had to do on your own. Now some of you did draw a chart and you got points for drawing the chart. Some of you didn't draw a chart and you didn't get any points. So remember, if you just show me a chart, at least I know you know what you're supposed to do. So in this one, angle 1 and angle 2, this one and this one, are both complementary. Not together. Angle 1 is complementary to 3. Angle 2 is complementary to 3. Show that the measure of angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. All right, number 1. Angle 1 and angle 2 are both complementary to angle 3. That was given. Now, we're going to deduct the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 3. Measure of angle 1 plus 3 is 90 degrees. Definition of complementary angles. So we can go ahead and start putting numbers on this, 90 degrees. Then I'm going to go even further. The angle 2 plus 3 is also 90 degrees. Same definition. Now I'm going to say the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 3 equals the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3. I can deduce that from all of this, and that's the addition property. And finally, I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the previous one. I'm going to get rid of the measure of angle 3 by subtracting, and so I'm going to say subtraction or transitive. There's some argument for transitive, but I like subtraction better. All right, the last ones were your algebra. Here are the answers. If you had trouble or got these wrong, please look through. I've worked them out. But A is -1, B is, B is 6, C is 3, D is 11, E is -5, and F is 3. So I am going to send this PowerPoint and post it, or I'm going to post the PowerPoint separately, but along with the video, then it'll be in multimedia. So if you just want to go a little more slowly through these. So hopefully you have gotten a little bit more confident on this. We are going to be practicing some next week with geometry proofs, and then I will be offering a retest for you to get additional points on your test. So hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you Monday.